So welcome everyone, and thank you very much for joining us in our session. I'd like to welcome two very special colleagues and professional friends of mine, Melissa and Dudu, and I'll introduce them in a second. What we'd like to do today is we'd like to take the opportunity to share their story as they've gone through different phases and are at different phases in implementing their onboarding programs. And quite specifically, we'd like to talk about the impact that experience-driven onboarding has in the organization, or has the potential to bring about in the organization. So to introduce Dudu. Dudu is the Senior Manager of Learning and Leadership Development at Discovery. So welcome, Dudu.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Great. And then to introduce Melissa. Melissa is the Head of Learning Development at Ogilvy. And so welcome,
Thank
Melissa.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you.
Great, and it's lovely to have you here. So we have 10 minutes. We would want 2 hours, but 10 minutes is what we've got. I have 4 questions, 4 discussion points that we'll be talking to Melissa and Dudu about, specifically looking at their challenges, looking at the lessons learned, talking a little bit about their passion for onboarding specifically, and then what excites them about their new onboarding program. So these are two HR and onboarding rock stars. They are catalysts for change in their own right, and so I think you're really going to enjoy the time together and to hear their stories. So I'll start with Dudu.
Sure.
So to talk about the challenges, and then I think where to kick off is this change we've had in welcoming new hires to our organizations as we've moved from remote working to a hybrid environment. And I suppose to start, just to talk about some of those challenges and what you're looking to solve for.
Sure. Maybe let me preface my response with saying that Discovery is a very human-centric organization. And so going back to the pandemic, that was quite difficult for us. However, it did present an opportunity for us to say, how do we still bring new employees into the organization in an equally inspired way? And my colleagues at the time, have to give it to them, did a great job redefining onboarding into a blended, virtually facilitated and digital program, and that has since evolved into this reimagined onboarding experience that I'm excited about. I have to say we are still quite early in our journey, but are super excited nonetheless.
Great, thank you, Dudu. Melissa, to you as well. So Ogilvy traditionally, similar to Discovery, most businesses very much centered around people and centered around culture on site, moved then into remote and now transitioning back into hybrid. So just some of those challenges that you're solving for in your new hire program.
So exactly as Dudu mentioned, Ogilvy is a high-touch, high-engagement business. And, when we moved 2.5 years ago, when we had to move over into remote working, and all of a sudden you have to adapt to using new technologies, as well as being able to interact with your people virtually, and that was tough at the time for our new managers. And then we weren't great at onboarding, we were very keen in the face-to-face and had our people coming into the business. So it was really hard at that time when we now virtually and had to shift everything. But thankfully we adapted really quickly and obviously invested in platforms, and tools like in order to help us with that onboarding experience. And I think not for that, we would still be challenged, so to speak.
Great, thanks, Melissa. So my next question is just to talk a little bit about the lessons learned. So you're both at very different phases in your organization's onboarding 2.0 programs. And I'll start with you, Melissa, just to go sequentially into it. So you're a year in. You're looking now at scaling, what a scaled-up version would look like, other use cases in the organization, and looking at enhancements. So I think just to share with everyone the lessons learned and maybe some tips that would help those other onboarding champions out there in the community on what they need to think about going into a program.
Well, I think the biggest lesson is that your job is never done. Yeah. And I think that was probably the hardest lesson. And I still joked with my team at one point and I said, when we started unpacking all of this, we had so many issues in the onboarding, and the more we dug into using the new technology, the more we realized there were all these complications, and I was like, oh, it's better not knowing what the issues were. But having said that, it's been so nice to kind of unpack all of that and get better. And I think it's just a constant learning. We've had to diagnose, we've had to implement, and we've had to reiterate as we've gone along. And I think we're just constantly doing that. But what's awesome is we're not starting from zero each time. You know, we're just improving as we go along the journey, which is great.
Which is great. Well done.
Yeah.
And do you do different phase, different part of the life cycle? You're at design, conceptualization, implementation phase, and you're going through a journey there and in looking at a scaled up rollout. So just some lessons there and some tips for the community.
Sure, and maybe just to contextualize, so we did run quite a successful proof of concept, and that's how we got given the go-ahead to implement as a standard for the organization. Many lessons. We've certainly paid our school fees, but a couple of key lessons do stand out. One, I would say, is you've got to make sure that your housekeeping is in order. So things like IT setup ready on day one, HR processes clearly defined, articulated and understood by everybody. Two, we are in the 21st century. The future is here. This cannot be done without digital. But, or maybe the human connection is absolutely still critical. And so you can't have virtual, digital without the human element. And then perhaps finally, to speak to what Marissa's already sort of alluded to, this is a big change. Systemic even. You are not going to get it right if you do not collaborate across the organization, and if you do not have senior leader sponsorship, which we are lucky to have. And so I would say from the beginning, go slowly, make sure you engage absolutely everybody so that you have alignment, and that will allow you to roll out quicker.
Great, thanks, Dudu. So we've got time for one more discussion point, and you've done a nice intro for me into it. So, you know, to speak to both your passions, it's why you do what you do, to speak to the human experience, to speak to why onboarding matters, and really about human-centric people programs, you know, and why we do this, and why this matters to you and to your business. And so I think, you know, to allow an opportunity, Dudu, if you can go first, just to speak to that passion and speak to what excites you about this program and the change you're wanting to bring about.
Sure, I feel so fortunate to be part of this work. Call me a dreamer, but I think that we have an opportunity to change the game when it comes to employee onboarding. So many times, people solutions just don't hit the mark, but with an experience-driven, personalized, highly connected onboarding solution, we have the opportunity not just to impact the rookies that are coming in, but the business as well. We know that happy, engaged employees are willing to give discretionary effort, and that actually translates into business results. So this is a strategic imperative, and I'm very excited to be part of it, Roland.
Great, thank you. That's a fantastic response. Melissa,
Yeah.
what excites you and your passion here, and what are you seeing coming through in your program as it moves along?
Yeah. So I think there are so many reasons why why onboarding is so important. And I think for me, if I pick out two reasons, I think retention. You know, the stats show that great onboarding experience, you know, you retain people for longer. So I think that's a must have. I think also we're in the space of, you know, talent is hard to find, and especially in like scarce critical roles, it takes time to fill a role, and you want them to be onboarded as efficiently and as effectively as possible and not have to start from the beginning again, you know. And I think, you know, those are two of the main reasons why that's, you know, why we need to do this. And I think what excites me is people's when employees come into the business, and managers and employees are just blown away, you know, by our onboarding experience. That excites me and keeps us going.
Well, that's fantastic. I think couldn't have said it better. So thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Dudu. We unfortunately only have an opportunity to say goodbye quickly. So just thank you to the CHR community that have joined this session. I hope you have found the story and a little bit of the insights from Dudu and Melissa interesting, and if anything, given you some ideas, some excitement, some courage, whatever that emotion is, to bring about that change in your organization as well, and in that new hire experience. So just thank you for participating, and thank you very much, Dudu, Melissa.
Thank you, Roland.
It was
Thank
lots
you.
of fun.
Thanks for
you.
having us.